No Soundbites Allowed is a podcast hosted by Michael Vass. The podcast focuses on providing in-depth discussions on various political and social issues. The title suggests the aim is to go beyond and explore topics in greater detail. Michael Vass, the host, engages with guests to analyze and discuss current events, policies, and political ideology. No Soundbites Allowed aims to provide listeners with a deeper understanding of the complexities surrounding contemporary issues. AI is listening. Shouldn't you know what AI knows? Aren't you tired of being treated like a child by major media parrots and want to be respected as an adult? There is nothing to lose and a lot to potentially gain, so check out No Soundbites Allowed on all major social media platforms.
All right, everybody, and hello. Thank you for being here with me. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, the political dragon here in our offices in the Bronx, New York. It is April 21st. It is 2:32. I'm about a minute late on the channel, so thank you for your patience here. And let's get started. Oh, yeah, we got Dal. He's right in there. Gotta love it. Dal's the first one to have a comment today, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Dal. For those who are new to the channel, I want you to understand and know that we're always happy to hear your voice. That's in the chat, in the comments. You can reach us on YouTube, on Rumble, on Facebook, Twitter, X, and many other social media sources. You can also call into the channel at 929-715-8569, and we're happy to hear what you have to say. Whether you agree or disagree, as long as it is respectful, I am always happy to hear your voices. And if you are an elected official anywhere in America, at the local, state, or federal level, especially if you are a Democrat or progressive, I absolutely want to hear your voice, and I will give you as much time as necessary to make your case. That's something we offer every week. We've been doing it for more than 6 years, and we really don't get anyone taking us up on it. I don't know what to say about that. Now, that being said, there's a lot that we want to talk about this week. I see Dow saying, the master of sass, the vast, that's the blast. He's Michael. That's funny, Dow. That's funny. What is with you, Dow? You go to a hospital, you get a boost of energy. What they shoot you full of at the hospital? They gave you some vitamins or something. All right. So obviously, I know some of the people who I'm always happy to see some of the regulars making comments. But even if you are new to the channel, your voice is welcome every time. Again, whether you agree or disagree with anything we say. For those who are new, we do long-form political commentary. We look backwards at what got us to the situation we are in today, evaluate what is happening right now, and then through these facts, we look at the conclusions. Where are we going to go next? How is this going to affect us going forward? So we try to keep that balance, and that does take more than 30 seconds, more than the nightly news is presenting to you, more than the headlines that you'll see that you're expected to accept and just obey and never question. We ask questions and we think about the issues because it's important. And that's why your voice is important. Everywhere around the world, we reach out across the world. We have about 100 countries around the world that watch this program at some point, including many politicians from around the world. And we're happy to see each and every one of you. Now, Grace Grimm is with us. Grace says, I think he's had a little too much caffeine today. Yeah, that could be it. But that's all right. I like the energy that's there. In case people are wondering, it's been a very busy weekend again for us here on the channel. You may have noticed, or perhaps you didn't, on Friday, of course, we had the Friday Roundtable with the Liberty First Foundation. I think it was a great conversation, talking about the U.S. funding, talking about some of the protests that we see across America, including at Columbia University, and of course the results of Iran and Israel directly attacking each other for the first time ever. And I think that was really interesting. It was a great conversation. I hope that you do check that out. I do also want you to know, yesterday we spent about 4 hours talking with Larry Sharp, who is my friend. He is a libertarian, totally different view. This is one of the subjects where Larry and myself absolutely disagree in terms of how to deal with Iran, how to deal with Hezbollah and the the Houthi terrorists and Hamas. What is the proper path forward for America? Larry, like Dave Smith, have more of an isolationist, hands-off approach. I don't agree with that. I don't think that works, and I was very clear about that. But we went through 4 hours. Earlier this week, on Thursday, when we were initially going to have me and Larry talking about World War III, Iran, China, what's been going on, the higher tensions in the world, we were pushed off because Breaking Point had an interview with Dave Smith, a libertarian, Cenk Uygur, who is a progressive, very progressive, from the Young Turks. There was Dennis Prager of Prager University, and I forget her name every single time, a woman, a journalist, speaking about the conflict with Israel and Iran. And me and Larry decided to review that and add our own commentary on top of their panel discussion. As it wound up, we spent 3 hours going through the first 30 minutes of the opening statements, and then another hour talking about the final 10 minutes of the closing statements. We didn't even have enough time to get through everything else, but I think it was quite interesting. We had a ton of people commenting throughout the entire event. A couple times that we were laughing and having some fun as well. I do recommend people take a moment to listen to that. It's a very interesting 4 hours of commentary, and people may be surprised by some of the comments. And I know there are some people who will be surprised at my point of view as well as Larry's. I think points were made on both sides, and I think it's very important. So that's a couple of things. Now, normally on the channel, what we like to do is deal with any of the breaking news first. We then get into the international aspect of what is happening around the globe, how it is affecting America, and how America is affecting that international aspect. And then we go into the domestic issues, how America is dealing with its own internal issues, and how that, of course, does affect not just America, but the rest of the world. So this is the format in case you are new. Obviously, we spent a little time catching you up to what my weekend has been like and how busy it can be sometimes. And I think next weekend is going to be busy as well. I may be traveling on covering some news events live. I'll let you know more about that later in the week. Let's see here. Yeah, Dal has way too much caffeine today. That's okay. Okay. Just catching up on the comments. And you can see us on Rumble as well as on YouTube, on Facebook, and Twitter. I left out Rumble. And I do see the comments from Rumble as well. I welcome that audience, which is always at least 3 times as many people watching than what we see on YouTube and on Facebook because of, well, censorship suppression. Because of the 2024 election, which we will get into in just a moment. So that's some of the old news, bringing us up to the date about what's going on. Obviously, we want to talk about World War III. You were promised that we were about to enter World War III, that the world was going to end. You were told this very clearly. Iran, all the tensions. Israel has to back down. Israel is in trouble. Israel is the problem, and we're going to see World War III. That was a lie. And we told you, it's not World War III. It has never been World War III. When they said it 5 times during the presidency of Trump, when they said this most recently in the conflict in the Middle East under the Biden administration, we keep being told it's World War III. No, it is not. The reality, as we have discussed at length on this channel multiple times for several years now, it is 3 regional wars. That is the reality, and in fact, that's actually scarier than World War III. China, China, Iran, and Russia do not have a unifying thought between them. They're not aligned. They're not unified like the Axis or Japan with Germany. There's no common thread between these countries. Their only commonality is they hate America. They want to usurp America, to take our resources, to take our position in the world, to have the leadership and authority in the world that America has right now. That's the only thing that unifies them. Otherwise, they hate each other. That is not World War III. I wish it were. It would be easier to defeat if there was a commonality that we could attack, like what we saw with World War II. It would make life easier. There isn't one. You have communism, you have religious extremism, you've got global geopolitical world building, empire building from Russia. So they're not aligned at all. And that makes this very difficult. But it is sensationalism that we see from the news media, that we see from propagandists, political organizations that are trying to use this to their advantage to make you afraid, to not inform you of the details, to give you these headlines, bold headlines, that are meant to terrify you and to cow you into submission, to obey because you're afraid and you're asking the government to do something. The worst thing you could possibly ever do is to tell a politician or a government, do something. Never, ever say that, and fear anyone that tells you that that's what you should be saying, because it is horrendous. That doesn't mean they will do something effective. It doesn't mean they will do something efficient. It doesn't mean that they will do something that is in your best interest or the best interest of the nation. Almost every single politician that has ever been asked to do something, quote unquote, will do something to preserve their power, to make them more valuable and more elected, re-elected than anything else. They don't solve anything. They kick it down the road because they did something. You feel good at night, you go to sleep, and then you realize down the road, oh, all it did was cause a bigger problem, and we kept the same people in place with the same promises to fix it eventually. Never ask governments or politicians to do something. Tell them to do something efficient. Tell them to do something effective. Hold them accountable, and then you will see a result. That is true whether you're a Democrat, a progressive, a libertarian, a conservative, or a Republican. It doesn't matter. We must make our governments accountable first. Then we can go forward from there. I think this is critical and important. What is going on with the Grimms today? They're very chatty, which is wonderful, but they're also losing their minds, which is funny. You guys have had too much caffeine today, and I probably haven't had enough. That being said, so I think that's important. And I don't think that's said enough, that we must hold our politicians and our government accountable. We can't simply just ask them to do something. We have to give them a specific purpose, a specific target that they must then specifically respond to. It's not enough to say, just do something. It is do something about this in a way that is tangible and effective. That is critical, and you don't hear that very often from anyone in the major news media in political commentary. And that's because they have political agendas. And that's a problem. We have to identify that and call that out. Now, while all of the world has been terrified about World War III, as we heard America pushing this message, it's about to be World War III. Everything's going to end. There's going to be nuclear war. No, there isn't. No, that's not where it's going. And we saw that. We saw that play out right in front of us. As we expected, Israel did respond. So Iran attacked Israel. Israel attacked Iran. And we knew they would. We told you last week that it was absolutely going to happen. It had to happen. Israel had no choice in the matter. They had to attack Iran to try and push back on Iran's messaging. That's what this was all about. Iran attacked Israel to put out the message to the rest of the Middle East that they were the big dog, that they could take on Israel, which means taking on the United States, that they could do that and no one else would dare do it, that they could do it without starting a war, that they could do it without having America bomb them or having some negative consequence, that they were big and bad enough to take on the big baddie or the big boy, big boss of the Middle East. And they succeeded in that messaging, especially when the Biden administration immediately and instantly came out and said, we would not support our only ally in the Middle East, Israel, in their efforts to counterattack, to push back against the message from Iran that Iran was the big boss of the Middle East. We didn't support them. Now that tells our ally, Israel, we're not really their ally. And it tells Iran, we're afraid of Iran. That's what happened this week. The news media will spin it 1,000 different ways. That is the end result. Iran won. Iran won this battle, which is what it was. And for those who are not sure how we got to this situation, it goes back to two events. And I was speaking about this when I was talking with Larry Sharp yesterday, in part when I said, this goes back to January of 2021 when we saw Joe Biden take office, and the first thing that he did was double the number of U.S. troops fighting in the Syrian civil war. Why are Americans fighting in Syria in a Syrian civil war? There's no reason. There's no good reason why we would do that. It did not benefit America at all. It has not resolved the tensions. It did not end the Syrian civil war. It hasn't helped. It increased our exposure and increased the amount of tensions in the Middle East. That's all he did. It's an extension of the Obama policy against Syria, but that didn't help America or our allies. The second thing that Joe Biden did that pushed all of what we are seeing right now is when he ran away from the Taliban in Afghanistan, September 1st of 2021. When he ran away in that manner, it's not that we lost the war, but the fact that how he lost that war, that he ran away, left behind weapons, ammunition, money, bases, technology, information. He left everything and 5,000 Americans. He left it all so that he could save political face, so that he could be in a better position for Democrats in the 2022 midterms. He wanted to look good politically, and he was willing to sacrifice anything, including American citizens, to be able to have that. And the world saw that. It was immediately after that rout, that embarrassment, that loss by America under Biden's direction. Then you saw Russia decide it was going into the Ukraine. Then you saw Iran step up its actions. Then you saw North Korea start firing off rocket, missile, and ICBM after another and ending their conversation with South Korea about unification. Then you saw China step up and say that they were going to forcibly take over Taiwan and started threatening the Philippines, Japan, and South Korea. It was only after the actions of Joe Biden that led us to where we are today. Iran would never and had never directly attacked Israel, even though they promised they were going to wipe Israel off the map of the earth. They have been promising that for 40 years. Since 1980, they have consistently said they're going to wipe Israel off the map of the earth. They're going to wipe America off the map of the earth. That is what Iran has said consistently for 4 decades. They have never changed their words. They never changed their plans. I take them at their word. But they've never directly attacked Israel, even as they say this rhetoric. They have always used their puppets, the terrorist organizations, Hezbollah, the Houthi terrorists in Yemen, the Hamas in Gaza. They have used terrorists to do all of their actions. They never directly attacked. That's because they were afraid of America and they were afraid of American presidents, strong American presidents that would support our only ally, Israel. But Joe Biden is the ultimate culmination of or outcome of weak presidential progressive ideology. He is the final outcome of what the transformation of America that Barack Obama promised us. He's weak. He's ineffective. He's more concerned about elections than he is about the American people or geopolitics and our allies. And that meant when he said he would not support Israel, and all he had to do is say, we back Israel. He didn't say America was going to attack Iran. He didn't need to say that. All he had to say is, we back Israel in defending themselves from a direct attack by Iran. That's all he had to say, to show strength, to show support for our ally. And instead he said, we would not support any offensive actions. Well, they had to defend their nation. It's no different than October 7th. They had to defend their nation from over 300 rocket missile attacks from Iran against the people. It doesn't matter that 99% of those, all but 3 missiles, were knocked out of the sky. It doesn't matter. It was the attack that mattered. And they had to respond. And they did, without the United States. But Iran would never have done it if Joe Biden simply said, we stand by Israel. They would never have actually made the attack. And we knew it was coming because Iran knew Joe Biden was weak and he was afraid of losing progressive votes. And that was more important to him than actually supporting our ally or American citizens. Remember, throughout this entire process, for 7 months now, we have had Americans that were killed by Hamas under the guidance of Iran, that there are at least somewhere around 22 Americans, if they're not dead, some of them may be, but at least 22 Americans were taken hostage by Hamas, tortured, sexually abused, and they are still being held by Hamas to this day under the direction of Iran. That Joe Biden doesn't want to talk about. The mainstream media, in trying to support Biden in the 2024 election, do not want to talk about this. You do not hear these numbers of how many Americans are hostage. You don't hear about the conditions they are being kept in. You don't hear about the negotiations that have failed consistently for more than half a year. You don't hear about that because it's not good for the Biden effort for Democrats in the 2024 election. Because if you knew that, if you knew how badly they have failed, how little respect they have received from Iran or from Hamas, that you might not vote for Democrats. And therefore, they don't want to talk about it. This is all part of the math. This is part of the conversation. And it does take more than 30 seconds to explain so that we can understand what is going on right now. This is critical. When you understand what is happening, all the parts that are moving, then you understand how weak the Biden administration has been and how little respect Iran has for the Biden-Harris administration and for America, at least at this moment. We need strong leadership. And it doesn't take a lot to show strong leadership. Again, all Biden had to say is, we support Israel, period, full stop. And that's all he needed to say. And Iran would not have taken the action that it did. Okay, so with that being said, and Dow says, for what this latest exchange was, Israel and Iran actually did a good job of not escalating. They threw jabs at each other and then just left it to go sulk in their prospective corners. Well, yes, and here's the thing. We knew that was going to happen. I mentioned that. This was about showing face. Iran wanted to say they are big and strong enough to take on the big and little devils of the world, Israel and America. That no one else in the Middle East would dare do what Iran does, so that they can gather strength and get unification, so that they can usurp Saudi Arabia as the strongest force in the Middle East. That's all they were looking to do. They didn't need a war. They didn't need World War III or a regional war yet. They needed support. They needed to look powerful, and they did. And that's all that they needed to do. Israel needed to respond to say, we're not afraid, no matter how big and strong you think you are in the Middle East, they are willing to strike back, that they will not stand in fear of anyone. And whether or not the United States has their back or not, Israel will take action. And this is what was happening in the Middle East. That's what's been going on for the last 2 weeks. This is messaging. These are messages that are being sent internationally. Geopolitical conversations that are happening both in the news media and on the ground with soldiers. This is what is being said. This is important because if you understand the geopolitical communication, what they are really trying to say to each other and to the rest of the world, then you understand it's not World War III. It is the logistical setup for a second regional war, much like what we see with Ukraine and Russia. And it is what's foretelling what the future may be like. It is telling us what is happening, how they are dancing and positioning themselves for future conflicts, and how they value or not value America's position in this, how much trust and faith and fear they have of America. It tells you a lot when you start to understand all of the factors that are involved. And the mainstream media will not take the time to have this conversation with you. The mainstream media and the main political parties do not believe you are smart enough to hear this conversation, and they are afraid that if you do understand it, you will no longer support them because they have failed you. They have failed dramatically in this process, and they don't want to lose their power. So they don't want to talk about it. They don't let you see where the dots finally end up. That's not conspiracy theory. That's looking at the facts at hand. And that's why Iran and Israel didn't go further. Israel responded. And it wasn't a strong response because Iran's attack wasn't a strong attack. They fired 300 missiles with more than 24 hours notice. Remember, Iran told the world they were about to attack. Every major country in the world knew Iran was attacking within 24 to 48 hours. They telegraphed exactly what they were going to do. And so the United States, Jordan, Israel, several nations were prepared and were already aiming and waiting for the missiles to come. That's why we had such a great success rate, why Israel had such a great success rate in knocking them down. We knew what was coming and when it was coming. All you had to do was aim and shoot. And that's why we had such great success. And therefore, that made it possible for Israel to not have to go overboard. They didn't have to have massive devastation. They just needed to react. That's all they needed to do. Just show a reaction that they were willing to attack back, and they fired back. A couple of missiles, a few explosions, no big deal. No real damage, good enough so that the Ayatollah and Iran could turn around and say, we don't know who sent that attack. We don't know where that came from. Might have been ISIS, could have been Al-Qaeda, could be radicals here in Iran that don't believe in the Ayatollah. Don't worry, it's not important. It was minor enough that no one had to care. They didn't need to respond, just like the attack in Israel was so minor, they didn't need to declare a war against Iran as they have against Hamas, and so it all blows over. The tensions dropped significantly, and the world moved on. It's just that simple. So that tells you that what is happening, how this was a geopolitical conversation. It wasn't about destroying Israel, not yet. It wasn't about fighting Iran, not yet. It absolutely was about how strong is America and where does America stand. It absolutely was about that. And nobody has respect. Middle East lost their respect of America. That's Israel, that's Iran. Everyone, our notch, our position fell several steps. That's a fact. And the rest of the world saw, oh, so this is what happens when America becomes more and more progressive. They don't stand by their allies, even while our American citizens are at risk. Remember, the hostages still held by Hamas. Hamas refuses to even tell us if they are alive or dead, and they are most likely dead. Let me deal with the hostage thing, because again, I was talking with Larry about this yesterday, and somehow this came up in the conversation. I think it's very important to understand. The hostages taken by Hamas, I am absolutely sure they were killed by Hamas. In fact, I said this about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, that the reason why Hamas won't tell the world if the hostages are alive or dead or give them up is because they want a deal in place first so no one retaliates against them. Because the hostages are dead. We were the first ones in all the news media, we were the first ones to tell you that those hostages were dead, that they killed them. Hamas killed them. Not Israel, not bombings, not accidents. Hamas killed them through the torture and sexual abuse. They killed the hostages. See, if it wasn't Hamas responsible for the death of those hostages, Hamas would be parading the bodies around. They'd be blasting every single news media source in the world, showing the evidence and proving that it was Israel or the United States. They'd be propping up all the evidence they could, bolstering their case that Israel and America are evil and bad and that Hamas is good. They've done it in the past. We know 3 hostages were killed because of bombings by Israel. They showed us all the evidence. They pushed that in your face. Why didn't they do that with at least 40 that we now are hearing are dead? 40 hostages are dead. They don't want to tell anyone. None of the details, no time, no place, no how this happened. They don't want to have any of those details, but they want a ceasefire deal first. They want a peace deal first. It's because Hamas did it. It was Hamas and their torture and sexual abuse of those hostages, and I strongly believe that means the American hostages, to protect themselves from retaliation from America, which would be justified. It would be very justified to have a military response from America against Hamas, not just because they killed 34 of our American citizens, but of the hostages that they took, they killed them too. America should be rightly enraged, and we should respond directly to protect themselves from that. They want a peace deal first, so that when they tell us, oh, and those people died because of the torture, not because of Israel, but because of the torture of Hamas, well, we have a peace deal. You can't go back on the peace deal. That would look really bad for your election. You would lose Democrat and progressive votes. And we know Biden is desperate to have progressive and Democrat votes just to be competitive. And Hamas knows that true. Iran knows that too. And they're taking that as an advantage. And I believe that when you look forward and in the coming week to 2 weeks, within a month, I think you're going to see a ceasefire deal come out based on the hostages being returned and their bodies being returned. And you will find out that the Americans are dead, killed by Hamas, not Israel. And Hamas and Iran are going to stand behind the peace deal as their shield, as their bulletproof vest, saying, you can't touch us now. You already made a deal. Too bad. We get away with it. That's what you're going to see. And nobody in the news media is willing to tell you that. I'm not the most brilliant person on the face of the earth. I am not some geopolitical mastermind. If I can figure this out, and we have correctly and consistently been predicting what's been going on with the geopolitics, especially in the Middle East, for years now, if we're able to see that and figure it out, I guarantee you, the CIA, the DOJ, Department of Justice, the military of America have figured this out already. They know this too. They're just not doing anything about it. In fact, because the Biden administration is so weak and so focused on progressive votes, they're letting it happen. We could do something about this. Yesterday, Larry mentioned something about the Mossad. And Larry Sharp had said yesterday in my conversation with him, he mentioned, well, Mike, we could just let the Mossad handle this. Why didn't Mossad, the secret agency within Iran, very much the equivalent, Israel, very much the equivalent of our CIA and our special forces, they could have gone in with their assassinations and assassination teams and resolved this, which he's not wrong. This is how Hamas and Iran are protecting themselves from American SEALs and special forces, Delta Force, and our other operations that could take some countermeasures. They're protecting themselves. And nobody wants to be honest with you. Nobody wants to tell you about this. And I mean, seriously, when you look at the news, I mean, look at the BBC, what we know about Israel's missile attack on Iran. Yeah, what we know is Iran didn't worry about it. We know that it happened. Israel didn't say they did it, but no one else took credit for it. No one else has been involved in it. And Iran was more than happy to let it go. The real question is what happened right now in Iraq. Yesterday, Iraq had an explosion, huge explosion happened in Iraq yesterday that also took out some Iranian militia. No one at this moment has taken responsibility for that. Some believe it was part of Israel's response to Iran in the first place, saying not only can we attack Iran directly, we're still going to take out your people. Iran hasn't blamed Israel for this yet, and because that would increase the tensions. Now, I don't actually believe this was an Israeli attack. According to all the international news media, there was no drones, there were no fighter jets, there seems to have been no missile that caused this explosion. It was something on the ground, which makes me believe, because this was in Iraq, what do we know about Iraq? Well, there's a huge presence of Al-Qaeda, of ISIS in Iraq, and they don't like Iran. I think they took advantage. The other terrorists, ISIS, took this opportunity to attack Iran, to attack a moment of weakness in the world, and to try and get their attention, to promote themselves as being big enough to take on the big dog. Iran was big enough to take on Israel, but ISIS is big enough to attack Iran. That's the kind of geopolitics we are dealing with. This is the mentality that we are seeing in the Middle East, which is why it's such a powder keg. Yeah, Iran is trying to promote themselves as being the biggest, meanest dog in the Middle East, and that they could take on the presumptive leader of the Middle East in terms of firepower, which is Israel, and ISIS is there trying to say, no, but we can take out either of them. And this is why we saw Iraq, and I believe in the coming days we will find out that it was probably ISIS that was responsible for this attack on the ground, using soldiers, possibly a suicide attack in this base, which is how they got in and how they got to the barracks, because this was an individual that had infiltrated into the Iranian base and attacked the Iranian soldiers there. It wasn't Israel. Israel would have flown a fighter jet and would have dropped a bomb on them. They would have fired missiles. They would have used drones. They would have let Iran and the world know they did it. There would be a paper trail. There would be evidence Israel isn't afraid of taking direct action. It's not Israel. It was ISIS. This is ISIS. So you can see how much of a powder keg the Middle East is. Now, will everyone agree with me about this? No. There will be some who will say, no, it was Israel, and Israel is trying to increase tensions. Doesn't make any sense. It's not in Israel's advantage to increase the conflict with Iran after it just stepped it down. They've already made their statement. They've already responded to the statement from Iran. The Middle East understands all the players and where everyone is at and their relative levels of power. It's already been done. This doesn't help Israel at all. It doesn't advance the goals of Israel. And it wasn't done in a way that Israel normally does these kind of attacks. So I don't think it was Israel. It's not the United States. We know that. Biden is terrified of his shadow. He doesn't want to be involved in any conflict anywhere in the world, not even in Haiti, in getting Americans out of Haiti, 700 miles away from the United States. A plane flight, 1 3-hour plane flight from the United States to Haiti, and he won't even help Americans there. He damn sure isn't going to be trying to attack Iranian outposts in Iraq, of all places. Biden is terrified. Terrified of any conflict anywhere in the world that might affect his progressive votes. He's not doing it. The United Kingdom isn't going to do it. They're too busy trying to find out if the 17 British hostages are alive or dead, and who's responsible. Hamas, Israel, the United States, who's responsible? That's what the United Kingdom is worried about. The Thai government, Thailand, they got their people out. 17, they got them home. They don't care. They don't want to be involved. The Nepalese, they're worried about it. Again, they're worried about their hostages. No one else has a reason to do this except ISIS. That's what I believe. That's my prediction. You can take that forward and understand we are roughly 85% correct over the last several years, last 3-4 years now. We have been at least about 85% correct in our predictions about what's going on with the geopolitics, especially in the Middle East. But you could wait for Time Magazine or MSNBC to give you a watered down version of exactly what we are saying after all the evidence is presented to you. You could wait for that, or you can understand it now and try and get our leadership to take a stronger position, to be strong leaders, to help stop this domino effect that we are seeing throughout the Middle East that is leading us closer and closer to 3 regional wars, which is where we are headed. 3 regional wars. Southeast Asia, Middle East, Europe. We are getting there. And the weakness of the Biden-Harris administration is not helping us. It is causing this to happen. So let me go on a little bit. Let me actually check the comments here for a quick second. And again, if you think I have misunderstood, if you think that I am wrong, I'm happy to hear your voice. If you think, Mike, you're too much of a warmonger, I've heard people say that. Okay, tell me why. If you think, Mike, no, that's far too dire a situation, it doesn't make sense, tell me why. If you think, oh, no, Mike, you misunderstand, that was the United States getting involved, fantastic, tell me how, why. What is the advantage for the Biden-Harris administration? What's the advantage for the British if you think it's them? If you think it's the Israelis, what's the advantage? Tell me what evidence you have and why you come to a different conclusion than I am. I believe I have been studying this for years, and I think this is the correct answer based on the evidence we have. Maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, tell me why. I think it's a fair thing. That's how we improve this. How do we end this? Understand what is happening, who's involved, and then we can try and figure out how to fix this. We can't do it without understanding who's in this and what are they doing and why are they doing it. And I don't think Americans will be terrified if they find out the facts, if they understand the reality as it is. Will they be pleased with the Biden-Harris administration and progressive ideology? Absolutely not. That's the leading cause for all of these problems. But we can then take proper action, demand that we get more of a leadership position from Biden, regardless of the votes that he may garner, and vote him and other progressives out of office so that we get leadership. Even if you want to say democratic leadership, we get leadership that is effective and efficient, that is actually focused on America's best interests, not their political ideology and maintaining power. I think that's critical. So again, I said I was going to look at the comments, and Grace has a comment here. This is the problem with our, quote, silent majority, end quote. The only people that are being heard are the loudmouth people shouting pro-Hamas propaganda, and that is who our government and our allies are hearing. Well, yes, you're right, Grace. People are hearing the colleges. They're hearing the Democratic Socialists of America. They're seeing on the news this pro-progressive movement because they're progressive, because they have to be. In fact, I've talked to a few people about this, and I was talking about Cenk Uygur and his conversation, his defense of Hamas in the debate with Dave Smith against Dennis Prager. And in that debate, and Cenk, his whole argument is the progressive argument, which is the small guy, the little guy has to be right. I mean, this is huge in progressive politics. It's part of their reasoning. They changed the definition of racism to include power, the power dynamic, how big or how small that group is. And Hamas is small. They don't have a lot of power. So they have to be the good guy. They can't be the racist. They can't be the bad guy because they're small, which is stupid. Makes zero sense. It is illogical, but it is there to prop up and protect these fringe ideologies. And let's be honest, the progressive ideology is fringe in the United States and the world. It is a fringe movement. It is a extremist ideology. It is not widely accepted. It is not widely accepted in the Democratic Party. They just have a really big voice. They're not big across America. Most Americans do not support progressive ideology, but they hear about it on a regular basis because they have really big voices. And Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks, he promotes Hamas because it's the same thing as promoting progressive. He has to support it because if he doesn't support Hamas, the small guy with theoretically little power, then he's not supporting progressives because the same argument would be used. Just because you're small doesn't make you right, therefore, shut up. Well, if Hamas, the small guys are the victors, they're the guys who we're supposed to support, well, you support progressives for the exact same reason. Because they're smaller, because they have less power. So they have to be protected, they have to be the good guy, and anyone bigger has to be the bad guy. That's how progressives protect themselves in America. Oh, we're small. You must be a racist. You must be an ist and a phobe because you're fighting against us. Ignoring the fact that the progressives were the ones who were throwing you stones and kicking you in your back, that they were the aggressors. They're trying to ignore that factor so that they can maintain their power and grow. And I guarantee you, if the progressives were to get bigger, if the Democratic Socialists of America were to become a third power party equal to the Libertarians as an example, or the Democrats as an example, I guarantee you they would drop this, power is a function of racism. They'd drop that. They'd stop talking about being small makes you being right, and they just say, we're just right. I guarantee you. That would be their thought process. They're very blatant and obvious about it, but it's not well stated in the news media. There's a few things that aren't being discussed in the mainstream news media because you're not supposed to think about it. I mean, it's kind of like the reaction that we see here. Now, I don't normally cover Al Jazeera because I think they are insanely biased. They are insanely in favor of terrorists. They hate America unjustly. But sometimes there is news that is covered by Al Jazeera that is not covered by anyone else. And in those cases, we will use their source. Although I reject almost overwhelmingly the majority of the things that they cover because of their bias, because of their inherent agenda in their news media and their coverage. But one thing I thought that was very interesting about this is that there was a vote this week on the 19th, 2 days ago, Friday. The United States voted down Palestine's membership. Now, mind you, we already saw that Antony Blinken, the United States, the Biden administration, said that they want to have Ukraine as part of NATO, and they've also said that they want Palestine, the Hamas, to be a member nation, to be a state upon itself and part of the UN. They've already come out and said that. But we voted against it in the most recent vote. Why would America do that? Because they were trying to position themselves in the middle, the Biden administration, in the middle of Iran and Israel. It's trying to sit on the fence. And that's why they voted against Palestine getting a UN membership at this moment, because it's the wrong time. They'd be picking a side, and they're trying not to pick a side, because if they pick a side, it will cost them votes in 2024's presidential election. There will be some people who are happy about this. Obviously, the graduates of Harvard, the graduates of Columbia, the graduates of Binghamton University, they will be in favor of it, but that's a minuscule number of Americans, and the majority of Americans will be upset, especially when they find out Hamas, this very same group that Biden just helped to become a member of the UN, killed American citizens. He doesn't want to do that. He wants the hostages back, their dead bodies back first, before he then promotes Palestine as a member of the UN, before he supports normalizing and recognizing Hamas, a terrorist organization, as a member of the UN. He wants the bodies back first so that people will forget, and then he's free and clear to support them. But the thing I found most interesting of this is the response by Hamas about this. And in the statement by Hamas, quoted by Al Jazeera on April 19, 2024, what they said, I think, is critical here, and links to everything that we're talking about will be in the description after the show so that you can read it for yourself in full and come to your own conclusion. But the part that I thought was very important is Hamas's response is, "We assure the world that our Palestinian people will continue their struggle and resistance until they defeat the occupation, take away their rights, and establish their independent, fully sovereign Palestinian state with Jerusalem as its capital." That is a statement that they are going to continue the war until they genocide Israel. That's what Hamas has just said. They said, please, make us part of the UN. And by the way, we're going to genocide a member of the UN. We're going to genocide a group of people because we don't like them. That's what Hamas has just said. This is what the pro-Hamas movement is. And if you say it's pro-Palestinian, there is no difference. The government of the Palestinian people is Hamas. They are interchangeable. Does that mean every Palestinian is a Hamas terrorist? No, of course not. But that is the government they elected. This is what represents the Palestinian people. This is what is leading them and their military. We have to call it for what it is. Americans are represented by the Biden-Harris administration. Whether or not I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative Republican. I oppose almost all the things that the Biden-Harris administration has put forward, but they're my government. They represent me on a global stage. There is no other way around that. That is a fact. Same thing for Palestine. Same thing with Hamas. And we are seeing that, look at the statement they have made. We assure the world our Palestinian people, they are responsible for this, will continue. They said they are going to continue to fight until they defeat the occupation, until they defeat Israel, that they're going to take away the rights of Israel and establish independent, full sovereign Palestinian state in the land and soil and territory of Israel. Jerusalem. They're going to take over Israel. This is their end goal. This is their They have never changed their opinion. They have made it very clear. They want to genocide Israel. They want it all. It's not a piece. It's not a part. They want it all, and they will never stop. This is what they said in their 1988 charter. This was reiterated in their 2017 charter. They just count on the fact that people aren't paying attention and don't know that you can look this up and you can hear them. This is what they said on October 10th after the October 7th terrorist attack against civilians, that they are going to continue to fight until they genocide Israel, a group of people, forever. And Israel is not genociding the people of Palestine. They're not genociding Palestinians. If they were trying to, they would have succeeded by now. They have the power, the capability. If they were trying to eliminate the Palestinian people, it would have already happened. And the Middle East doesn't care. Jordan, Syria, Egypt, even Iran, none of them care. They wouldn't care if the Palestinian people were dead because they don't want those people. They don't like those people. They're more than happy to get rid of them. That's why they're all in Gaza, because there's nowhere else for the Palestinians to go. No one else wants them. No one else will give them rights. No one else will allow them to grow. In fact, under the Israelis, under the quote-unquote occupation, the Palestinian people have grown by 500%. The thing that's been saving the Palestinian people, believe it or not, factually, is Israel. They have more rights, more quality of life than anywhere else in the Middle East. That is a fact. Israel isn't, while it's not perfect by any means, by any way of looking at it, it is the best scenario for the people of Gaza that you can have in the Middle East. That's just the reality. That's just a fact. People don't like to recognize that fact. They don't like that it's an unpleasant fact, but it is a fact. All right, let me see here. Now, I know a lot of people have opinions about this, a lot of feelings. I had a lot of libertarians and people who were watching me and Larry discuss this. A lot of people were upset with me. But they're upset because I'm telling you facts. I'm giving you the reality. And I understand people don't like that reality because it's not a pleasant reality. I'm not telling you that this is a good thing. I'm not telling you that you should be happy about it. I'm just telling you these are the facts at hand, and this is what we have to deal with. These are the cards that we have been dealt. These are the cards we have to play with. We don't get a choice to have something else. There is no, you can have all the Pollyanna pie in the sky, rosy tinted glasses that you want. That's not the reality of what's happening in the world. At the end of the day, the reality is that Hamas is homicidal, that they are trying to be genocidal, that their interest isn't in the best interest of stability in the world. And it's just, that's just the reality, and we have to deal with that. So I wanted to get into that. And by the way, the majority of people in America agree with me. I know a lot of people are going to be shocked by this. What do you mean, Mike? Majority of people in America. Majority of the United States says Israel has a valid reason for fighting. That's my position. Fewer say the same thing about Hamas. 57% of people say they have sympathy for everyone there, but when we look at the numbers, Overwhelmingly, the American people believe that the position of Israel is valid. The reasons why they are fighting against Hamas, the terrorists, is valid. Those who believe that the terrorists, Hamas, are valid, incredibly small. You're talking about 22% versus 58% of Americans. 58% of Americans agree with me. Israel is correct in fighting the Hamas terrorists. Only 22% of Americans, gee, that's about the number of people who graduate from college. That's about the number of people who get their news from TikTok, a Chinese communist company. Yeah, about 22% of them, almost all of them, young, say that, oh, no, it's the small terrorists that are the good guys. Only the terrorists are good guys. It's just funny like that. When we look at how this is fighting, given the fighting that has been going on for 7 months now, fighting that started because Hamas decided to kill civilians in an act of terrorism, one of the greatest acts of terrorism, similar to 9/11, in fact, the 9/11 of Israel. Well, let's see. We see that 38% of Americans believe that Israel is correct in the way they are responding. You may not agree. 38% of Americans do, and they agree with me. 5%, not even the number of graduates from Harvard, not even the number of graduates from Columbia or Binghamton University or Cornell University, not even the highly indoctrinated, college-educated progressives. Only 5% of America agree with Hamas. That tells you something. It makes it very clear. Again, the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about this. They don't want you to realize this. They're trying to emphasize on TikTok, on social media, in the news. They're either trying to minimize this conversation or they're trying to convince you that Hamas is somehow the good guy and that Joe Biden is doing the right thing. They're trying to make this as ineffectual as they can, but it's not real. And this is why America is so deeply entrenched in this. Okay. Dow goes on to say, it is more advantageous for our leadership to be financially embroiled in these conflicts because you can bet that most of these proponents of war spending have interest in the machine for kickbacks. Well, I'm going to get into the funding that has been approved for the Ukraine, that has been proposed for Israel and Hamas. I'm going to get into that when we start talking about the domestic side, although that is international. That the United States government is the Congress wants to take $95 billion of your money out of your pocket, increasing the amount of inflation in the United States, making poor people more poor, not helping to feed our homeless, our vets. No, we are prioritizing wars in other countries that aren't our wars. Think about that for a second. They are cheering in Congress about funding wars that have nothing to do with America. The Ukraine war is not an American war. Even in Israel, that's not our... Now, we have more of a reason to be involved with Hamas and Iran. We have more interest in that one because they killed our people, because they have our people hostage. So that gives us a reason to be involved and an interest in that. And in that respect, we're spending $26 billion. More than half of that is going to fund the terrorists that killed our people, that have our people hostage, that they are torturing and sexually abusing at this moment. We're giving them over $9 billion. Think about that. They took your mom, your sister, your brother, your uncle, your dad. They took your family member and they beat them up. They nearly killed them. They tortured them. They are sexually abusing them. And the United States government just gave them $9 billion. Does that make sense to you? So that they can do it more. so they can capture and torture more Americans, so they can kill more Americans. We gave them we're proposing to give them $9 billion. Does that make sense to anyone? It makes sense to progressives because the small guy must be the good guy, has to be the good guy because they, the progressives, are the small guy. So the small guy must always be right. Doesn't matter what they do, doesn't matter why they're doing it. They must be the good guy because progressives are the small guy. This is self-preservation. They have to support the terrorists because they are the equivalent. I don't think many people have pointed that out to the American people to understand why we're seeing the colleges promote this, why the Democratic Socialists of America, why have they joined into this? Why do they keep saying, well, Hamas is small, so Israel is the bad guy? Why do they keep painting it that way? Because the progressives are small. They want you to think when they show them on the media, when they show them blocking off bridges and interrupting people's lives, when they show the protests of them trying to burn down cities across our nation, that they're attacking our law enforcement, they want you to think these are huge movements with lots of people. No, they are tiny. They're getting all their people together to close off that bridge, to try and attack a police station. This is all their people. This is all they've got. They have to make it look as big as possible because they are tiny. They are a sliver of a fraction of the people, even within the Democratic Party, let alone the entire nation of the United States. God help us in terms of the entire world. They are tiny. They know this, but they have to make you think small equals good. I don't know how they come up with that equation other than it's their own self-interest. It is their political benefit for them. That's why they do that. That's why they have that ideology. That's why they rewrote what is racism. They redefined it in their own best interest. And they just don't want you to think about it and notice that's what they did. Okay, so we talked a little bit about that. Let me take a moment here. Different tack, different item. I wanted to talk about this because the policies that we have seen, they're not just affecting the Middle East. They're not just affecting Europe with the war between Ukraine and Russia. They're also affecting here in the United States. They're affecting us just in Trinidad, Tobago, which I know a lot of Americans don't think about. It's kind of the Caribbean, kind of part of South America. It's right on the edge of both. But this is basically the Cuban Missile Crisis all over again. A lot of people don't think of it that way, but it is. This is communism moving into our neighborhood, down the block from the United States, essentially. As the Biden-Harris administration continues to push the same progressive ideology of the Democratic Socialists of America, of the Barack Obama transformation of America, as they push this weakening of the United States, China is taking this opportunity to expand its communist influence throughout South America. They already did it under the Obama administration. They already expanded their influence throughout all of Africa. Every time you're buying an electric car, every time you're trying to push solar panels and wind, alternative green energy, you're helping China, not the United States. It's not making the world cleaner. It's not making America energy cheaper. It's not helping the American economy. It's helping the Chinese economy. They have the deal for all of that. Not the United States, because Barack Obama dropped the ball, because Barack Obama wanted to help the progressive movement, to help the communists. He helped them to get into Africa and take Africa, all the deals, all the relationships. That's all with China. And now that's happening under the Biden administration. Biden and Kamala Harris, they're opening the door for China. And China is walking in. China is pushing their influence, whether it's in providing the jab medication at cheaper rates and in larger quantities than the American-made versions, or what we're seeing right now, where China is going in, and this is coming from Newsweek, by the way. So again, this isn't right-wing. This isn't right-leaning news media. This isn't some conspiracy. This is the news. This is internationally credible news agency. And who's telling us this? This is coming from Newsweek, talking about the U.S. Virgin Islands, talking about the Chinese influence there. They're talking about Tobago, Trinidad, Tobago. Where is it? I just want to get that quote. I had it set up. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Antigua. Hundreds of millions of dollars of loans and grants from China and extensive construction by Chinese state-owned companies of critical infrastructure, including ports, airports, water systems, are turning Antigua, once considered part of America's backyard, into China's front yard. Did I say Trinidad Tobago? I apologize. They're right next to each other. I had a different thing in my mind. It's Antigua. So this is happening. This is being reported by Newsweek. This isn't a conspiracy. This isn't some wild idea by some lone Republican conservative on the internet. This is from Newsweek. They are telling you what is happening, and it is happening because of the Biden-Harris administration. Because remember, our southern border czar, Kamala Harris, who was supposed to be working with all of South America, Central America, the Caribbean, supposed to be bolstering their economies, helping them uplift their people so they stop entering America illegally. Complete failure there. 8 million illegal aliens later, even as 200,000 a month enter America at this moment, complete failure. And instead they're turning to China, who are actually investing in these countries, that are actually trading their investment for influence, political influence. This is what we saw with Cuba. This is how the Soviet Union got the Cubans on their side, because the Cubans came to America first. Che Guevara, what's his name? Fidel Castro. They came to America first. They were American educated. They came to America and said, hey, help us. And when America turned them down, then they went to the Soviet Union. Then they went to the communists. Well, guess what? Same thing here with Antigua. You know, they went to the Obama administration. They went to the Biden administration. When Kamala was running around South America, Central America in 2021, as she failed consistently, when we saw Eric Adams, mayor of New York City, running around on the taxpayer dime to have his vacation in South America, when we saw Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, running around the world trying to prop up his potential for being a candidate for the presidency in 2028, yet not one of them actually stopped in Antigua, in the Caribbean. Not one of them actually had any influence or any impact or any benefit. And we see that because China is. Because they left a big, huge, gaping hole, and they knew it, and they didn't care. And China took advantage. And this is a problem for the United States. It's a problem for the world. Because this is how the BRICS, B-R-I-C-S, the movement to replace the United States dollar with the Chinese yuan, in other words, changing the world's currency from dollars to Chinese currency called the yuan, that's happening. Why? Because they're taking over places like Africa, the 36 countries in Africa. They're over here going after South America. They're going after the Caribbean islands. And the news media doesn't want to talk to you about it. They don't want you to think about it. You're not supposed to speak about it. You're not supposed to think about it. Kamala is doing a great job, and open borders are wonderful, and immigration is under control. That's what they're telling you in the news media. They're telling you that China is our friend, and it's not a big deal. And don't worry about it. Don't think about China. It's not important. The fact that they are building up centers of influence right outside the United States, you shouldn't be concerned about that. Hell yes, you should. Hell yes, you should. This is a troubling sign. Same reason why we freaked out when Cuba suddenly went to and became communist. We should be concerned. This is a threat to our livelihood. You're not going to live a better life under communism. Look at the people in China. Don't believe me. Ask Lily Tang Williams, who grew up under Mao, who grew up as a communist in communist China before she got a chance to be in America. Don't believe me. Believe Lily Tang Williams. Your life will never be better under communism. It wasn't for, ask the Russians who suffered under the Soviet Union and their quality of life. I've been there. I've been in Moscow when the Soviet Union existed. I've seen the quality of life that people had to live there. And it's horrendous. I have never wanted to wish that on anyone. And I know that's what they got in China. And now they're trying to export it to us slowly and steadily. Because when they're in South America, when they're in the Caribbean, when they're in Central America, where are we getting a majority of the illegal aliens coming into America from? South America, Central America, the Caribbean. That's the majority. Yes, there are a lot of people from Africa, like Angola. Again, Chinese influence. Sure, there's people from other countries. Chinese directly are coming into America. But the majority, Venezuelans, well, that's communist influence as well. And they're all coming into America not to be Americans, but to bring their failed policies, their failed ideologies into America with them. They want to be Venezuelans in America, not Americans who happen to be Venezuelan. That's not why they're here. They're here to be Venezuelans in America, bringing along their ideas of communism, their ideas of progressivism. They're bringing that with them. Not capitalism. They're bringing their failed ideas into the United States and using our resources to fund their failed ideas, weakening America, strengthening communism. I want you to think about that, folks, because a lot of people don't. Because no one wants to tell you that. Because it's not fun. It's not happy. It's not positive. The progressives don't want to think about that because they compartmentalize. They block off all of the negative consequences of their ideas, and they only look at the positives. They never balance it out. They never consider what the consequences are of their actions. They only say, eventually it will work out. Eventually it will be good. Or in the meantime, it's hell in a handbasket. It's ruining America. It's ruining the world. But their answer is, don't worry. Eventually it'll work out. Eventually it'll be great. Eventually everyone will be equal. Screw you. I don't want to be equal. That's not a good thing. That means you're a drone. You're a zombie. If you're equal to everyone and everyone's equal to you, you're no longer an individual. This is the dehumanization that they have been trying to attempt. This is the whole idea of equity, that you are a category. You're not a human being. You are exactly the same as everyone else in the category with you. And you are just a sum of categories, nothing else. You have no individual value. You have no individual agency. According to the progressives, you are just the categories that they have arbitrarily ranked based on their score of equity, whatever that may be. And that's all you are. And that's all you ever will be. And you need government to take care of you because you can't change it yourself. This is the progressive movement, and that's why we see things like what is happening now with China that no one wants to talk about. The mainstream media does not want to discuss this with you. They want you to be ignorant of this, and I think it's the worst thing you could possibly do. Wow, it's been about an hour and 18 minutes. We've been doing great here today, and I'm enjoying this conversation with you. I hope if you are enjoying this conversation as well, please do me a favor. Take a moment, like, share, subscribe. That's all we ask for. It costs you nothing. There's $0 commitment to that. Just like, share, and subscribe so we can have more voices from around the world, whether they agree or disagree. Let's have this conversation. If I'm wrong, prove me wrong. Let's give more people that opportunity. Let's share in the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, that you can hear me and more people can respond, whether they agree or disagree, so that we can try and help and improve the world, the United States and the rest of the world as well. That's all I'm asking for. That's all I'm looking for. And I hope we can get there. But that doesn't happen without you providing a like, a share, and subscribing, most of all. Because we know Google, YouTube, they've already told us they are going to suppress every voice except the mainstream in 2024 because they have to protect the election. That's Google's words. Those are YouTube's words this year, and they are doing it. And it's harder and harder for people to hear anything except the 30 seconds of news coverage by the mainstream that has been approved and sanitized and meant to fortify the 2024 election. I'm only asking you to let more people hear this and then make up their own mind. And of course, if you can afford $1.50 a month, if you are rich enough to afford just $1.50 a month, then you can join our Patreon. And that helps us a lot to pay our bills. It makes a massive difference to me. It means you won't get cream in the coffee that you have. That's it. That's the difference for your life. But for me, it makes a big difference if you were to consider that. If you can. I understand the economy is bad, and it has been bad, and it's going to stay in a recession going into 2025. That is a fact. Don't believe anything else. That is the reality of our economics right now. At least until 2025, we will be in a recession as we have been since 2022. So if you can afford the $1.50, fantastic. If you can't, not a problem. If you want to donate more, you can go to our Patreon. You could do that. But that's, again, none of that is required. All we ask is for a like, a share, and most of all, to subscribe. So, and yes, I got to get the pitch, folks, because we don't grow if we don't ask. Because it's not like YouTube's going to help us. It's not like Google's going to help us. I mean, I can go right now. Rumble, 300% more people are watching us on Rumble right now than on YouTube. Every single week. Minimum. At a minimum. We have 300% more people who watch us on Rumble than on YouTube or Google. And we have more subscribers on YouTube. That's a fact. We have more subscribers on Facebook. That's a fact. And more people will watch us on Rumble. Why? Rumble will let our voice be heard. People are finding us. You don't get that because of the suppression of Google and YouTube. And that should tell you something. Why are they so afraid? If what I am saying isn't making sense, if the conclusions I am coming to, the evidence I am showing you from international news sources over and over again, if it's all so wrong, why are they afraid to let anyone hear it? Why are they trying to suppress it? Why don't they want people to just say, well, Mike, this is obviously incorrect. Here's a news source, and obviously, here's the logic. You're wrong. Why won't they do that? Instead, they will say, you're evil, you're ugly, you're soulless. They'll say you're a shill. They'll say everything except, here's the proof why you're wrong. Here's the logical reasoning, the conclusions that show that you are wrong. No, that they won't. Because that doesn't happen, because we're not wrong on this channel, because of that is why they don't let people see this. We're fighting against it. You're the big key on that. So, and again, I'm perfectly happy. Every week I say this. I'm perfectly happy to hear your voices. If you think anything I have said doesn't make sense, if any of it is wrong, if there's evidence to refute anything, any of the conclusions that I come to, I'm happy to hear it. I have asked every week, and at the beginning of the show, I asked any elected official across America, especially those that are Democrats or progressives, call in. I will give you as much time as you need to prove me absolutely wrong. I invite that week after week after week. They don't ever call. But if you do want to call in, you can reach us at 929-715-8569. The phone is on. It is connected as we speak. I'm happy to hear people's voices if you want to call in about any subject that you want to talk about, because this is a conversation with you and me. And I am seeing the comments both on Rumble. I'm seeing the comments on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, as you can see in the chat right now. Okay. So we've been talking a lot about the international aspects for more than an hour and a half, about an hour and a half now. We've been talking about the international impact. We've been talking about why it's not World War III, why it is the logistical setup, and maybe I should make that more clear. We are seeing Southeast Asia is preparing for a war. We see that in Japan. They just had 2 fighter jets crash as they are building their army, the first army they have had since 1945, because they don't trust Joe Biden and, in effect, America to stand up to the 1960 Japan-U.S. treaty. They don't believe we're going to protect, even though we have a base of Marines in Japan right now, they don't think we're going to stand by them. Same thing in South Korea. This is why they have become the 4th largest small arms manufacturer in the world. They were number 7. They're now number 4. Why did they, or in the process of becoming number 4, why did they do that? Because America isn't protecting them. They don't believe America is going to stand by them. They had Kamala Harris show up, and after Kamala Harris told South Korea the plans of the Biden-Harris administration, they decided to start building up their military and building up their ability to defend themselves. The Philippines have been screaming about America needs to come and help them. They have been asking us to reopen our bases in the Philippines, to come back and help them defeat China, to help ward off China. And again, we have contracts, we have treaties with the Philippines that says we're going to protect them. They're saying live up to the treaty, come and help us, as China is barn stomping all over the Philippines. Again, preparing themselves for what I believe will be an open war in 2028, when they go into Taiwan and forcibly take it over, as they promised they are going to do that. It's not a question of if they're going to do it, it's when they do it. That's the only question. And this is all in preparation of that. And we see it happening before our eyes. The Middle East, this is preparation. Iran is trying to make themselves look like the big, strong dog in the Middle East so that all the other Middle Eastern countries follow them. It is cultural that aggression and strength are seen as positives in the Middle East. That is culturally part of the Middle East in every single culture, every single country, and throughout their cultures. Strength and aggression are seen as good, and they follow the strong, aggressive leaders more often than not. That's just the reality of it. That's their history. That's what we see. And Iran needs to make the rest of the Middle East think they are the biggest, the strongest, the meanest, so that when they attack Israel, and they are planning to attack Israel. We have seen it. They've already taken the first step. There is no way back. The Pandora's box is open. They've attacked Israel. They can't back down from that. We can't go backwards in time. This has changed the dynamics forever going forward, because if they've attacked them once, they can now attack and must attack in the future. The world has changed. They know it. And they want all the other countries who are afraid and have been afraid since the 1973 Seven-Day War. After Israel beat all of the Middle East, they've all been afraid of Israel. And now Iran is saying, stop being afraid, follow them. This is a problem for the future, and I believe that will be the second region of a simultaneous 3-regional war. And the United States can't handle it. Hell, the United States can't handle supporting Ukraine, which we'll be going to in just a moment. We can't help we can't handle supporting the Ukraine in their proxy war, a war we're not directly involved in. We don't have troops there. As much as France wants the United States to have troops on the ground fighting, we're not there. We still can't handle the Ukraine war. We can't keep up with supplies. We've drained all of our ammunition. We've drained our ability of having tanks and rockets and everything they need to fight. We don't have the extras. We're building them now, but we can't keep up. And I guarantee you, Russia and China and Iran have noticed that we can't keep up with the ammunition needs of Ukraine. This is tiny. Imagine when you see 3 regions going on at the same time. Do you think we'll have enough ammunition to supply Japan and South Korea and the Philippines and Israel and also Europe all at the same time? When we can't give enough ammunition for Ukraine by itself? And we're not seeing the United States build up our manufacturing facilities here in the United States. In fact, we are curtailing them. We are seeing that the Biden-Harris administration, the progressive policies, are promising to reduce the Second Amendment, access to the Second Amendment, reduce the amount of ammunition that is available to the public. Hell, you've got places in New York and in California that are trying to tell you that you need a special license just to get ammunition. Again, contracting this, reducing access to this, making it harder, making less of it available in the United States, so that when there are 3 regional wars going on, we aren't able to support any of our allies. Clip that, share that with everyone you know. They're going to be amazed. They haven't thought of it that way, because no one in the news media has mentioned it in that way, that by losing the Second Amendment, by restricting the access of American citizens to ammunition, as they have proposed to do, as the progressives have put out there, that limits our ability to be able to support our allies when they get attacked, as they are positioning themselves to do. Okay, let me look at the comments again. Dow, you are so busy with the comments today. Dow says, there's very few who could challenge the arguments laid out relying on just talking points. That's basically most all of what your critics have in their arsenal. Well, yeah, talking points don't last very long if you go through the facts, if you know the data. They don't last. But I'm trying to cover a lot of information here. And again, I understand if people don't know or don't agree. That's okay. I'm happy to have that conversation. Trust me, the best thing that could happen in my life, in your life, is for someone to have the factual data to prove me wrong and say, Mike, nope, the rainbow is right around the corner. Life is about to be all unicorns and candy corn. Life would be great. I would love to know that. That would be the best thing, but that's not the reality. That's not even close. Okay. And this is why we don't hear the left really disputing the evidence that I provide to you. And again, for those who don't know, links will be in the description at the end of the show, so you can see all of the information I'm talking about for yourself to come to your own conclusion. I never expect you to just take my word for it and just assume that I'm correct. Double check me. Here's the sources. I will show you the sources. I show you as we go through it. I show you the sources so you can make sure for yourself where this is, what the status is. And you can see the credible news sources that I am using that are almost entirely left-leaning. Now, with all of this going on, you would think that at the highest levels of education in the United States, they would be doing something like what I have done, to lay out the information for their students and allow their students to come to whatever conclusion they want. That isn't what is happening in America. In fact, what we are seeing is that they have closed ranks around the progressive ideology that they must protect. And whenever anyone even questions a little bit their ideology, they lose their minds and go berserk. They create protests that almost always violate every local, state, and federal law. They go out and protest and almost always involve violence and destruction of property. Almost always. And we're seeing that with Columbia University, which is only the latest of a huge string. We have Harvard, MIT, University of Pennsylvania, Cornell University, Binghamton University, and we have Columbia. I left out Cooper Union. That's just a couple of the ones on the East Coast nearby. We can go across. Hell, Berkeley, they've got an autonomous zone right there. You can just go through this one by one. And consistently, what you are saying, every one of these universities are saying more and more progressive ideology only. There is no freedom of speech. Hell, at Binghamton University, they want to have free speech zones. Actually, in several of these colleges, they want free speech zones. Mind you, the First Amendment is the law of the land of the United States. I don't need a free speech zone. I have the First Amendment. I was born with the right of free speech. I'm not in England. I'm not in Canada where they can pick words and say, you must use these words or you will go to jail. I'm not in Iran or in Venezuela where if you say something, you will be killed, shot by secret police, that children are being poisoned for daring to go to school and learn how to read. That's Iran, by the way. No, I'm in America, where you have the First Amendment. You have the right of free speech, except at these colleges, because they will use force and coercion to silence any of their opposition. We saw that in 2018 at Binghamton University, when 200 of these progressives surrounded three Binghamton students because they're conservatives, because they had a different ideology politically. 3. It took 200 progressives to surround, threaten, and try to silence 3 conservatives because they were making a point. That included a Binghamton City Council member, which we have highlighted in the past and shown you. Members of Binghamton City Council on the left were there. We have seen that this is why the Department of Education is investigating Binghamton University for breach of contract. Even as we speak, Harvey Stenger's job is on the line. Eventually, the Department of Education will finish their investigation and come out with a ruling. Binghamton doesn't want to talk about that. And even most recently, in last week, Binghamton just had the same thing that's happening in Columbia is happening at Binghamton University, as an example, where we have the Student Association voted down in Binghamton University. Do I have it here? Hang on. I want to double check. Give me a second. Where is it? Hang on a second, folks. I want to try and find this for you. There we go.
If you're in favor of freedom of speech, that means you're in favor.
Bear with me, folks. I want to show you. They removed it, didn't they? There was earlier this month.
If you're in favor of freedom of speech, that means you're in favor of freedom of speech precisely for views you despise. Otherwise, you're not in favor of freedom of speech.
Hi there, Internet.
This week,
My name is Patrick
in
McAuliffe.
Binghamton
I'm the
University,
editor-in-chief of
there was a
Binghamton
meeting
Review.
with the
This is our first
Student
ever Mean Tweets
Association,
video. We've
and,
been around for 30 years, and the Internet finally decided to catch
the
up.
students came together to decide that they did want to support Hamas. They wanted to support terrorism with federal dollars, with your dollars, federal tax dollars, public funding, that they want to use that to support Hamas, which is illegal, by the way. And in that discussion, it was found they got voted down. The students of Binghamton University said no. They voted against the support of Hamas. And after they voted against supporting Hamas, the progressives refused to let anyone go home. Through, I don't even know how they did this, but they continued. Here it is. Here it is. I just wanted to make sure I showed this to you. So, where is it? Here it is. So, this was on April 16th, 5 days ago, that Binghamton University came together. There was live stream from the Binghamton Review, which has been since removed. I don't know why. Showing the Student Association. And they were trying to advance the BDS, an anti-Semitic resolution attacking those who are Jewish, attacking Israel, supporting Hamas, terrorists, and terrorism. They wanted to change the way the money is spent. And the Student Association voted against the support of BDS, against the support of anti-Semitism, which is a great thing. And then somehow, this happened at about 11, almost midnight on the 16th, and somehow it kept going. The vote was over. It was done. They spent 4 to 5 hours debating this at Binghamton University. And then after the vote was done, they went back. The progressives at Binghamton went back, and they still got the passage, and they have now, I think, violated New York state law and tried to advance the BSD resolution, the anti-Israel, pro-Hamas, pro-terrorism change of funds. It's insane. But no one's talking about this. No one is talking about this. You're not supposed to notice that. You're not supposed to think about that. You're not supposed to speak about it. Because just like at Columbia, well, the Columbia students, Ilhan Omar's daughter, shockingly, she got arrested for breaking the law, for trying to force people at her college to agree with her specific political ideology. At a university where people are supposed to express the First Amendment, to exchange ideas, to grow their minds, to improve themselves, she and 108 of her progressive friends decided that you can't think different than them, that you must be a progressive, you must accept their ideology, their way of life. You do not get to have a choice at Columbia University. And by the way, after 108 students were arrested 2 days ago, they're still there, still violating the law, breaking local, state, and federal law. They're still breaking the rules of Columbia University itself. They are still coercing, as we speak, 200 of them are at Columbia University, continuing to coerce their fellow students to force them to agree to a political ideology they may not like or agree with. Am I surprised that this is Representative Ilhan Omar's child? No, not at all. Because Ilhan Omar wants to destroy the Constitution. They want to remake America, to make it into their home nation, their ideology, their political ideology. They don't care. This isn't about agreement. This isn't about a consensus of thought proving their case. They're going to force you. And you're the bad guy. Columbia University is the bad guy because they had to arrest. They were limited. They had to go all the way. This was an extraordinary step. They gave multiple warnings. They were trying to provide safe environments. If they didn't arrest these students, Columbia University would have been sued for violating its code of conduct because this was considered dangerous. They tried everything to mollify, to help these kids, to let them understand they were breaking the law. And they didn't care. That says a lot, I think. But you're not supposed to think of it that way. You're not supposed to understand that these are criminals. Yes, they are criminals. The students at Columbia University, Harvard, at Binghamton University, they have been breaking the law. These protests are acts of criminal violation. When they block off city streets, that's a crime. When they are stopping traffic, that's a crime. When they are burning down buildings, that's a crime. When you are illegally just breaking out tents and campsites on public property, that is a crime. When you're doing it at a university, that is a safety violation and a crime. Oh, but we're not supposed to think they're criminals. We're supposed to say they're the good guys. Because, again, like Shank said earlier, they're small. Oh, but they don't have power. No, but they have the power of coercion. They have the power of the media. They're made out to be looked at as the good guys as they break the law, and they know it. They did it on purpose. They're breaking the law so they can get arrested. This is their intention. Because they think that if you see them get arrested, they get to say, see, we have no power. We're the small guy. We got arrested. You should support us. You must support us. You must take our side. Doesn't matter that there's a First Amendment and you might disagree if you actually knew all the facts. No, no, no. There are no facts here. We're small. They're big. We're right. You're wrong. Do what we say. Well, that doesn't sound like freedom to me, now does it? Does it sound like freedom to you? Let me go back to some of the comments here. Let me go back to the comments here. Let me catch up here. So, Dal says, things are going to be very bad if the general population focuses entirely locally and insular, ignoring the authoritarian attempt to exert pressure by lawfare and violence. Well, you're right. I agree with you. Because these aren't local issues. They're not talking about local politics. It's happening locally, but it's not. Because the same thing that happened at Columbia University happened at Harvard, happened at MIT, happened at Cornell University. It's happened at Berkeley. It's happened at USC. It's happening across our country. Mind you, it's centered at these progressive strongholds in the bluer than blue states, in the bluest of blue counties where these colleges are. Then, yeah, it's happening there first, and then it's spreading out. These kids are being indoctrinated, and they're taking that indoctrination, and then they're going out, and they're destroying cities, they're destroying states. New York State is bluer than blue, in part because we have over 200 universities that are very progressive in New York State that have taught this progressive ideology. They've implemented these progressive ideals as a state and in cities like New York City. And that's why we have open borders. And New York State, as well as New York City, are considered sanctuaries for illegal aliens. And that has led to New York State being in debt, bankrupt. New York City is bankrupt. The infrastructure is being collapsed, falling apart. People are being thrown, citizens are second-class citizens. They're being thrown out of the facilities our taxes pay for to benefit illegal aliens because of the progressive ideology taught at colleges like Columbia, like Binghamton University, like Harvard. That should terrify people. That should make you very concerned. That in our own country, in our own cities, where your taxes are being used, they're being used against you. They are protesting at our colleges. They have been taught that the small guy, the progressive, is always right, no matter what, because they're the small guy, because they're the progressive, because they have the right way of thinking. and anyone else is wrong. And you can break the law against these people because they're wrong. That is a dangerous way of thinking about the world. There are many examples throughout history of people thinking like that have led to mass murder across history. And this is what our colleges are teaching kids today. And they call it progressive ideology. This is positive. This is the future. They're on the right side of history because they're writing the history. If someone else wrote it, they wouldn't be the good guys. And matter of fact, people who are writing history right now who aren't progressives are telling you they're not the good guys. The internet documents they're not the good guys. They just happen to be small, thank God. And let's hope they never get bigger. Let's see. Dow says citizens are being reduced to slaves to pay for a new enforcement class that is being built out of criminal aliens. In part, I mean, the illegal aliens, they are criminals. Absolutely. They broke the law. They are criminals. I know there's a lot of people who get very upset with me when I say, well, illegal aliens, one, they're illegal aliens. They're not undocumented because they have no authorization to be in the United States. They have no documents to be in the United States. They literally broke the law. They are illegal aliens. And when people go, well, you can't call them that. Okay, they're criminals. And they go, oh my God, how can you call Mike? You're so insensitive. It's the truth. It's a fact. They broke the law. They are continuing to break the law. They are criminals. Oh, but you can't say that. That's so negative. It's the truth. It's amazing. Think about that, folks. If you want to see how radical the world has become, how crazy it has become, when someone's talking about illegal immigration, and that's a big topic in America, especially with the election coming up, and you say, oh, you're talking about the criminals. If you listen to someone on the left and they're defending illegal aliens, they're saying we need more sanctuary cities, we need more illegal aliens, we should be taking our tax money and spending it on them, not on American citizens. Okay, and so you think we should reward the criminals? Say that. They will lose their minds. It is a factually correct, it is empirically correct to say illegal aliens are criminals. That is a fact. Everyone in America, even in sanctuary cities, they are criminals. That is a fact. And if you say that to someone on the left, they will lose their minds. They will go crazy because you told them a fact. That should really scare people. That should really wake you up. You think I'm wrong. Tell anyone on the left, tell these people who are supporting these progressives, the Democratic Socialist America, tell them that they are supporting criminals. And make sure they understand you're talking about illegal aliens, undocumented migrants, whatever the word they want to use to describe them, they're criminals. And they will lose their mind on you. They will go crazy in screaming at you, how dare you call them criminals because they broke the law? How dare you call them accurately what they are? That should tell you everything you need to know about the progressive movement. How dare you call people what they are, what they legally have done? It's amazing. So it is scary. It's terrifying. But we are seeing they're gaining momentum. We should be terrified, folks, because although consistently for approximately about a year now, we have seen in virtually every single poll, over and over again, Donald Trump has been leading Joe Biden, in the election. What is this? Whoops. Hit the wrong button there for a second. Consistently. This is according to Real Clear Politics. This is a neutral site that collects all of the different credible news sources, the credible polls that have been done out there consistently. And if we look at this, we see this trend we see that, where is it? As you look at this, consistently, we have seen that Donald Trump has been leading Biden overwhelmingly, about 90% of the time, by roughly about 1 to 2 points consistently. But now we are starting to hear from the news media that Joe Biden is winning, that Donald Trump is losing, that the margin is getting smaller. It's not. Again, I'm pointing to the evidence in front of you. Oh yes, the most recent NBC poll has Joe Biden winning versus Donald Trump. NBC, which is a biased far left news wing that is trying to push the Biden agenda, the Biden-Harris supremacy. They are fortifying that. But that's only one. Everyone else, almost entirely, consistently show the same thing. In fact, some of them, like Rasmussen, have shown Trump winning by 7 points. No, but they are trying to give you an impression, an idea, an ideology. They're trying to tell you, you have to believe them. You have to fall in line. You have to support it. And I really don't think you do, because their policies aren't helping anyone. I'll give you an example of one of the ideologies they want you to have. They want the far left believe in the alphabet, LGBTQAI plus MAP. And the MAP is minor attracted persons. This is what we used to call pedophiles. Pedophiles were universally seen as a bad thing. But the progressive movement has said, no, let's rename it. They love to do this. They love to redefine, rename things. And, oh no, pedophiles are minor attracted persons. They're part of the LGBT alphabet, and that they have to have equal representation. They have to be accepted. You have to allow that. Probably because of Epstein Island. Probably because of so many of the members of Hollywood, entertainment, and in politics. Amazingly, so many of them seem to be pedophilic. But the left want you to support this. And that leads to moments like this, where we have the Seattle Police Department. This is coverage from earlier yesterday, where the Seattle Police Department, they wound up shooting an individual who, well, you can say they were a pedophile. Okay? Many would call them that. And the first thing that guy did you notice? He pulled out a gun. He got confronted by the police as he was trying to commit a crime, which was to engage with children between the ages of 7 and 11. 7 and 11. This isn't questionable. But the left says this is okay. The progressives say this is okay. That this is part of their allies, that they support this. A minor attractive person, 67, trying to meet up with a 7-year-old. That's just insane. That's sick. The guy pulls out a gun, which in Seattle pretty much is a crime. And then he gets shot. Mind you, it was in 4 seconds. In 4 seconds, he was shot, I believe, 22 times. I counted, and it seems like he was shot 22 times in 4 seconds. And you would think that story would be big news. You would think that would be a national story. Either because a pedophile was caught trying to engage with relations with a minor, a 7-year-old. That should be news. That should be something we should be talking about in America. That this is how we get those Epstein Islands, by these kind of individuals pursuing these children, that the minor attracted person isn't a positive thing, because it allows for, the more that we push this idea of MAP, of a minor attracted person, the more we're going to have 67-year-olds preying upon 7-year-olds, which is sick and vile. We need to have this conversation in America. We need to call it out, whether it's in Hollywood or in politics, left or right, I don't care. We need to call out all of these people, and we need to deal with all of these people wherever they are. This should be national news. But there's another way to look at this. Remember how the news media was trying to push the fact that a black man got shot 96 times in 41 seconds. I remember that. They were trying to make this like George Floyd. They left out the fact that that same man was shooting at police officers, and he did in fact hit police officers, that he pulled a gun, and he was the one who started shooting first, and he hit officers, and that's why he got shot 96 times. Or rather, he got shot at 96 times. He didn't get hit 96 times. And he was in a car that he was in covered protection throughout this shooting. When they went crazy about that, oh my God, 96 bullets in 41 seconds? This was 22 bullets in 4 seconds. Someone else can count this if you want. Again, you see the link so that you guys can tell for yourself. But according to my counting, it's no less than 22 shots. It's less than 4 seconds. That's more. So the people who were screaming about police being brutal, and the people who were talking about gun control and how we have to limit the number of bullets, and oh my God, the police are so aggressive. Why aren't they talking about this? I wanted to think about that. If they were consistent, if this was consistently about law enforcement is out of control, if it was consistently about lethal interactions, if guns are bad, then you would expect, these are all left-leaning policies. This is the progressive movement. They say each of those things. Wouldn't they be highlighting this story, trying to make you understand their point of view? Wouldn't this be an example of that? Except when you put it in context, when you understand that it starts with, this is a pedophile, that this pedophile had a firearm that may or may not be legal, that this pedophile pulled that firearm and then fired that firearm, that was the cause of this whole situation, well then their arguments about law enforcement, their arguments about firearms, their arguments about pedophilia fall apart. Because you can see this for yourself. Because any reasonable adult in America, just like when we understand the details of what's happening with Israel and Iran and Hamas, reasonable people will overwhelmingly support the reasonable person. That's why the majority of Americans overwhelmingly support Israel and not Iran or Hamas. It is the reason why the average American overwhelmingly will support the police and not the criminal. Why the average American does not support minor attracted persons, otherwise known as pedophiles. They do not, because they do things like this. And I can't say that people are really upset about it. And I can't say that I'm upset that one more pedophile no longer exists on the face of the earth. I cannot say I'm upset. But why wasn't that major news? Why wasn't that something across all of the mainstream media? If the progressive left actually believed in the things that they try to tell us when it's advantageous to them, then why don't they use that argument here? Why aren't they talking about, oh, well, the police are using too much force? Are they? Oh, but you have to accept people having different sexual preferences. Do we? Are you sure? Is this because the progressives would make you believe that the police should not stop a 67-year-old from engaging in relations with a 7-year-old, which I find disgusting, but that's the progressive ideology. That's what they're taught at Columbia. That's what they're taught in Harvard, at Binghamton University. They are taught that this is okay. They are taught that the police defending that 7-year-old are the bad guy. This is what America is coming to. Are you surprised why Iran, why China, why Russia think America is weak right now? Do you understand why they are using examples like this one in Seattle? They are using this very same situation, this very same individual showing up to have relations with a 7-year-old. This is the message that they are using in China, in Iran, in Hamas, in Hezbollah, in the Houthis, and Russia. They're using this example that this happens in America, and that Harvard and Columbia and Binghamton University support this. That's their reason for attacking us, from harming us. Do you see how this is connected? Does it make sense to you? You don't have to like it. I understand completely if people don't like that. You shouldn't like that reality. But we have to deal with it. This is the reality. This is the weakness that the world is seeing in America. The poison that they're seeing. This is why it costs $200 million. The United States spends $200 million to try and convince Pakistan that they should be like Seattle, that they should be like California, where this 67-year-old pedophile is trying to have relations with a 7-year-old. We're trying to convince Pakistan with $200 million. We're spending $2.6 billion a year under the Biden-Harris administration to try and convince everyone else in the world that that's okay. That what happened in Seattle, that this guy trying to have relations with a 7-year-old is okay. That him having a firearm trying to defend himself against the police who are enforcing the law, who are protecting 7-year-olds across America, that the police are the bad guys and the pedophile with his gun, that's the good guy. Oh my God, this is crazy. Has anyone thought of it? I mean, think of it. Think about this. If you think I am wrong, if I am misunderstanding this, if I have not understood this properly, please let me know. You can call in at 929-715-8569. The number is scrolling above your heads as you're watching the show. If you think, Mike, you have misunderstood this, this isn't, you're wrong. That the pedophile, that somehow that MAP, that minor attracted person, they're the good guy here. That they should have shot the police. If that's what you believe, please explain it to me. Tell me how you think a 67-year-old should have relations with a 7-year-old. Please explain that to me. Because I don't get it. I don't agree with that. I'm not upset that the police wound up shooting this person to death. I am not upset that they fired 22 times at this individual in less than 4 seconds. I'm not upset. I wasn't upset when the police, well, I was surprised, but not upset with the police when they fired 96 times at a guy in 41 seconds because he was shooting them. I'm not upset with that. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, guys? Okay, let me see the comments here. Someone has to have a comment on that, I am sure. Someone has to have a comment. Let me see. I'm catching up on the comments. Bear with me here. I believe Dal starts with the progress. There he goes. Though progressives are small, there he goes. Though progressives are small in number, this is Dal. Dal has said that though progressives are small in number overall, the big difference between singular polls and the aggregate, the mainstream media never frames it by aggregates and never draw the distinction. Okay, So going back to my comments, Dal is going over the comments when I was talking about polling domestically in the United States. Yeah, the media wants to hype up the NBC News poll and try and convince you that Biden is doing incredibly well and that suddenly he's going to win. They're leaving out the fact that in the same week, the Emerson poll said that Trump is going to win by 4. They leave out all the other polls, like the Times Siena poll that said that Trump would win by 1. That's left-leaning too. They don't want you to notice that. So Dow is correct about that. Dow goes on to say, even more amazing was the officer gaining control of the weapon and looks like, and going back to what we were just discussing about the map, that he says, even more amazing was the officer gaining control of the weapon and looks as if the first shots were directed from that back into the weapon's owner. Yes. Apparently, and I don't count that as the first shot. So it's not counted when I say there's at least 22 shots in less than 4 seconds. I'm not counting the fact that the officer instantly recognized, and you can see right here on the screen, you can see him reaching for something. The door opened up and his first instinct, the first thing this guy thought of when the door opened up was, I should pull my gun. He was going to pull a gun on, apparently, he intended to use a firearm to perhaps coerce, I don't know. Maybe he was looking to coerce the 7, the 11-year-olds that he was expecting to encounter, to force them to do things against their will. Maybe, don't know, can't say that for sure. I'm just guessing there. That is my speculation, that that's one of the reasons why he had a firearm. Maybe he was afraid that the adults of those 7-year-olds, that 11-year-old that he was expecting to encounter, might have taken some offense about what he was planning to do, and he had the firearm to counter those parents, those adults, and impeding his map, his minor attracted personality. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Can't say for sure. But I do see this officer coming up immediately, recognizing the threat, stopping it, and this guy didn't care. He kept firing. He caused this all to happen. And I'm not upset. I'm not upset that he's gone. Maybe that's me. Maybe that's me. But did anyone see that in the nightly news? Did you see NBC talking about this? Did you see this on CNN? Did you see the New York Times write an article about that saying, hey, you need to understand, we need to have this conversation. Oh my God, the police are so bad. Look at what they did to this pedophile as he was trying to do pedophilic things. Oh, no, you don't hear that. Why not? It's a serious question. Why not? Oh, well, it's gun control. We need more gun control because pedophiles are using guns to try and coerce 7-year-olds? Is that your line of reasoning? That doesn't quite make sense. No, I don't think that's it either. But, I mean, we need to have these honest conversations, folks. We need to have these conversations. How about this? Because I don't want to talk about pedophiles, the minor attracted persons. Although it's a highlight when we talk about them getting shot to death, in my opinion. You may or may not agree. I think it's a highlight to the day to hear that they got shot to death. But that's me. But let's talk about something a little bit different. Because we know that H.R. 8035 got passed. Now, a lot of people say, well, what the hell's 8035? By the way, you can look this up yourself. The news media really doesn't want you to ever look at this information. They want you as dumb as possible, which is why we provide links for everything that we discuss here. Whether you agree with me or not, I want you to have the evidence, the information that I got. This is what the government is put out there, and this is how I found it. This is the laws that they have written so that you can read it for yourself, so that you can see the votes for yourself. That's what the news media should be doing, and they should tell you that H.R. 8035 is the Ukraine Security Supplemental Appropriations Act of 2024. It is a combination of several different bills all put together to fund foreign wars. This is foreign war spending. This is your tax money going to foreign nations to spend it for other countries. We're giving them your money. We're not giving it to the homeless. We're not helping veterans. We're not helping hungry children. We're not helping the poor. We're taking your money and we're giving it to foreigners in foreign countries so that they can fight a war that has nothing to do with America. It is that simple, which is probably, now that I think about it, why the news media doesn't want to say that. They don't want to tell you that this is what is happening, that H.R. 8035, which they do not want you to notice, they don't want to mention it by name, they will just tell you, oh, this is the foreign aid package, this is the Ukraine bill. They'll rename it in the most innocent way they can so that you don't realize what it does. I want you to know the truth. It's called H.R. 8035, and you can see the link. You can see exactly what it does. And one of the things that upset me, not only that they hid this bill from the public by calling it everything except what it is, without addressing what it does in terms of it creates more inflation. This will make the poor more poor in America. This is bad for Americans. This is bad for the United States. It is enabling foreign wars to continue longer than they might continue otherwise. Wars that we have nothing to do with. This is foreign aid to countries to try and convince them to become California or if not California, New York State. And they don't have any reason to be California or New York State. Hell, people in New York and in California don't want to be in those states, and American citizens are flooding. They are exiting those states at record levels every single year. And we're trying to convince people to be something that Americans don't even want to be. Does that make sense? But this bill, one of the things I found really disgusting about this, really aggravating about this, and I'll get to the comments in just 1 second. One of the things I found very aggravating about this is H.R. 35. It gets passed, and do I have it here? There it is. This is another picture of that. This is the House. They're waving Ukrainian flags in the United States, in our government, on the floor of Congress. The United States is the only flag that should be in our Congress at any time. We should not have members of Congress, mostly Democrats, waving a foreign nation's flag. They're not here to represent. They were not elected to represent the Ukraine. They were elected to represent the United States. This is telling you that you are not their priority. They are waving another country's flag. Their priority isn't Americans. It isn't the homeless, the poor, veterans. Their inflation, their priority is Ukraine, a war that is not an American war. I understand if you say, oh, but Mike, we should help Ukraine because Russia is bad. I agree with you. Russia is bad. And yes, you as an American citizen can donate as much money as you want to the Ukraine to help them. You can buy weapons and ship them over to the Ukraine if you want. You're an American citizen. If you own a business, you can do that all day long. Volunteer your money as much as you want. And our government, if they make a good argument for it, I understand why they may want to do that too. But why are we funding and essentially having a proxy war with Russia? Why are we doing this? What is the benefit? We have spent well over $250 billion. I want people to understand that. $250 billion. Almost $250 billion has been spent so far on the Ukraine. We have no more ammo left. This is a fact. The United States can't make enough ammo to fund the Ukraine anymore. Europe does not have enough ammo. They can't continue to fund and give this ammo to the Ukraine. They're using so much ammo, proving to Russia, to Iran, to China that we cannot supply our troops in a conflict. We have just given them a confirmation that if they have regional wars all at the same time, the United States and Europe is overwhelmed and cannot stop them. We cannot support our allies. That's what the Ukraine has promised, and we're giving them more. We're stretching our supplies and our support even more. Why are we doing this? Why is their priority? Why did they walk into Congress with the flag of another nation that they do not represent, and that is not their priority? It is not the purpose of Congress to fund any other nation in their war, especially when we are not involved in that war. And we aren't involved in the Ukraine war. We have made ourselves involved, but we can cut that involvement at any time. Does that not make sense to people? Have I not made my position clear on that? Do people think I am wrong on that? That this is a bad thing, that we are funding the Ukraine with some $60 billion. I want to be clear about that. $60 billion that we are taking out of our pockets, out of your pocket, out of my pocket, out of the pockets of children who could otherwise be fed. It costs $20 billion to resolve the housing crisis in the United States. I mean, the entire housing crisis in the United States could be resolved with $20 billion. That's the top high-end estimate. Some people, many estimates say that it could be done with $13 billion. Rather than fix housing in America for everyone, we're going to give the money to the Ukraine. Are you serious? With $20 billion, we could fix hunger for the youth in America. Children in America could be fed with $20 billion. We could help to reduce and probably resolve homeless vets with $20 billion. That's $60 billion. For $60 billion, we could remove 3 major issues in the United States that affect people of every single color, religion, age, political affiliation, sexual preference, sexual gender. It helps everyone in America. Everyone. We could do it with $60 billion and some effort. But instead of doing that, we're going to give $60 billion to the Ukraine, who can't pay us back. Even if the Ukraine wins tomorrow, if the Ukraine suddenly, overnight, were to win, they cannot pay us back $250 billion. They don't have the resources. They don't have the technology. They don't have the personnel. They can't pay us back. They don't have the ability to do it. Can't happen. We just put money down the drain. We're never getting that money back. And we're giving them this money, and they're losing. I know there are people who are upset about this. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to think about it. The reality is the Ukraine is losing. Sorry. I would like them to win. I'd like to see Russia lose. Not because I think Ukraine is better. They're corrupt as hell. But they're better than Putin. I think Putin needs to lose. Absolutely. Said that consistently. But that's not what's happening. Because just because I want that to happen isn't the reality. The reality is Ukraine is losing. But even if they were to win, they can't pay us back. They don't have the ability to pay us back. And we're going to allow 3 massive problems in the United States. And by the way, this is all money that they are printing brand new. This isn't money we already have, which means it's inflationary. By printing this $60 billion and sending it to the Ukraine, we are absolutely increasing the amount of inflation in the United States. We are making poor people more poor. There is no two ways around that. The Democrats don't want to talk about that part. They don't want you to think about that part. They don't want you to recognize that their support of the Ukraine is making poor people in America more poor. They don't want you to think about that. As they wave a flag telling you they support another foreign country, not American citizens. That American citizens are at least secondary in their consideration, not primary. You should be upset. You should be very, very upset. You should be absolutely livid and angry about this. I am. You should be too. This is not a positive message. This is not a good thing. Look at this. Benny Johnson was talking about it. They're waving Ukrainian flags in the halls of Congress as they take $60 billion out of your pocket, send it to another country. It will never, ever come back. It's $250 billion that will never come back. You will never get this back, but you will be more poor because of it. Things will cost more because of this. And America is less safe because of this. A lot of people just aren't thinking of it that way. They don't realize that. And here's another part of it, because this is also under H.R. 1160. And we're seeing kind of the same thing that we saw here with H.R. 8035. It's the same thing. It's funding for this. $95 billion in funding. And we can see who voted for it. By the way, you can also see who didn't vote for it. And again, this will be in the link for the description. These are the people who said, well, maybe America should focus on American issues first. Maybe America shouldn't print $95 billion to give to foreign countries. Maybe we should deal with issues in America first. And we have many individuals here. In particular, we have the Freedom Caucus, Republicans, overwhelmingly, and also we have individuals like my friend Claudia Tenney. We have Elise Stefanik as well. So some of the politicians I know personally, I have supported in the past personally, they're also voting against this. But the Democrats overwhelmingly said, hey, no, this is fantastic. Let's vote against America and American interests and never get money paid back and focus on a foreign country in our nation. Oh my God, what is going on? This is so wrong. Is there anyone who thinks I misunderstand? Is there any Democrat, especially those that voted for it, which is all the Democrats, is there anyone who disagrees with me? Is there a Democrat who voted for this, a progressive that voted for this? You know, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you're in New York. You're right down the block. You're very close to where I'm at right now in the Bronx. Do you want to dispute this? Do you want to go and have a conversation publicly live? You're in my district. Let's actually next door to my district. I can get an Uber. I can be over in your district in about 20 minutes. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, would you like to have a conversation about this to explain why you support this? Because she does. She voted for it. You voted to make people in New York State, in your district, District 14, to make them more poor. You decided to not help children who are starving in America. You decided not to help veterans who are homeless in America. You decided to give money to the Ukraine that we will never get back as they lose the war. Now, there is another aspect of this that I should mention, because there are also, so it's $60 billion for the Ukraine. It's the other part that people are losing their minds about, and the part that the left is losing their mind about, it's also $26 billion for Israel and Hamas. Keywords: Israel and Hamas, or Hamas and Israel. They're spending $26 billion. Most of that, more than half of the $26 billion is for Hamas. Well over $9 billion is being spent on Hamas, on pro-Hamas Palestine Gaza. Think about that. This is the part that the left is upset about. Not the fact that we're going to increase inflation, that the poor people they represent are going to be more poor. They're not worried about that. They're not worried that this extends a war that it's a losing war and we're just stretching it out and extending it. They're not upset about that. No. They're upset that Israel is getting less money than Hamas. That they want to fund Hamas more. They want more money to go to the terrorists as the terrorist fights against our ally, the same terrorist that killed our people, that have our people hostage. They are funding. They've given over they want to give over $9 billion to terrorists who kill Americans and torture Americans as we speak. This is what the Democrats are upset about. This is what H.R. 8035 does. This is what the celebration is about. This is why they are waving the flags. It's not just that they don't care about you, so they're waving a Ukrainian flag. They're also distracting you from understanding that they're supporting Hamas, that they are spending a ton of your money making people poor so that they can fund terrorists who kill American citizens, who torture American citizens. They are clapping up and down and joyous that America is funding terrorism, directly funding terrorism against the law. It is illegal, and we are funding the terrorists with your money so that you go poor. You are going to become more poor. Your investments, your retirement is that much further away from you because they're funding terrorism. Does that sound like what the American government's supposed to be doing? Does that sound like that's a benefit to you? Does that sound like that's the right thing to do? That we're printing money and becoming poor, we're destroying the infrastructure of our country so that terrorists who kill our people, who want to commit genocide, who are vile and evil, so that they get more money. This is what the Democrats, this is what the progressives are happy about today. This is what they're cheering on. This is what they want to do more of. This is why they went to Columbia and to Harvard and to Binghamton University. This is why they went to college, so that they could be indoctrinated and they could say, you know what? They're the small guys, and even though they're terrorists, they're smaller, so they're good. You know what? I saw the Young Turks too, and they want to support the terrorists because the terrorists are the small guys, and we have to always support the small guy because the small guy is always the good guy, just like progressives in the United States. Doesn't that make sense? Oh my God. This is aggravating, folks. This is aggravating. 2.5 hours. If you've been with us for 2.5 hours now, I appreciate and I thank you for this. And I know there's a bunch of people who have been. And that's on Rumble, that's on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. Even if you don't agree, I appreciate that you have been with us now for 2.5 hours and our conversation. And I hope that you understand why I am upset about the things I am, and the fact that the news media is hiding information from you that is essential, that they're having a watered down conversation with you because they're trying to protect their political interests, their political agenda. They're not being honest with you. They're obfuscating the facts from you. And this is a problem. Now, you don't have to agree with me on, maybe you think it's a good thing. Maybe you think there's a positive outcome out of this, that the Ukraine will win and somehow they will magically find the money that we gave them and give it back to us. That we'll get all this money back somehow. Don't know how, don't know, there's no way possible, but some miracle will happen, and not only will they win, that will pay us all back. Okay, give me that scenario. Please explain that one to me. How are they going to do that? What do we get? Oh yeah, dead silence. Because no one knows what the hell that would look like, how that would possibly happen. Now, one of these people who are running around waving a Ukrainian flag can tell you how you're getting your money back. Screw interest. You're not getting interest. I'm just talking about the money we spent. Forget about the interest. Forget about a loan. Just getting the money back. How is that ever going to happen? Oh, they have no idea. No clue whatsoever. They didn't care. They didn't think about that part. That's not important, Mike. You got to understand, we got to do this. Why? Why do we have to do this? Why must we do this? Well, because Ukraine is smaller than Russia. That argument again? That stupid logic? This is logic you get out of kids in kindergarten. Smaller is better, so that's it. Everything that's smaller is just better. That is stupid. You've been with us for 2.5 hours. I want to thank you for hearing what I have to say, to see the evidence that I am providing, to leave comments like Dal has, or to often when people call in at the 929-715-8569, to hear this, to see some of the other things that we've been speaking on, not only on this Sunday live stream, but also throughout the week with the Liberty First Foundation, with Larry Sharp, and some of the specials. I really do. Please remember, like, share, subscribe. That's all we ask for. Like, share, subscribe. I should probably have it on the screen. I don't at the moment, but like, share, subscribe. It makes all the difference. And if you can afford $1.50 every month, maybe join my Patreon. Maybe. That's a choice. It's up to you. If you can't afford $1.50 a month, and some people can't, then I understand. Don't do it. But it costs you nothing to give us a like, a share, and a subscribe. Maybe if we get more people, if we can get to 5,000, maybe 10,000 subscribers, maybe these politicians will call in. I've had many interviews with members of Congress. I've had it with members of New York State Legislature. I've talked to presidential candidates and vice president candidates, national candidates, not some Mickey Mouse guy in the hole in the wall, real candidates that have real votes across the entire nation. We've done that. But it's hard to get them to respond because they think we're too small. They think that we can't change the votes. You know when we get the most of these politicians responding to this channel, calling in, actually doing interviews, when they're afraid they're going to lose an election. I tell you that very clearly. All of a sudden, when they think they're going to lose an election, they think it's going to be a tight race, suddenly I start getting a lot of phone calls from politicians. They're going to call me independently and go, hey, Mike, guess what? Maybe we should talk about this. Maybe I can be on your program and we can talk about this issue. Would you like to do that? Yeah, I get that call when they think they're going to lose. That's in October, in September, October, when they want to pump up their numbers, make sure that they're getting all the people they can. I know the agenda. I know how they play the game. They're also afraid because I'm going to ask them real questions, and they won't get away with the usual 30-second soundbite and don't tell anyone any facts. No, I want to understand, and when they come on, I want to ask them, you just waved the flag of Ukraine. You put the Ukrainian people above the American people. You just spent our money making Americans more poor, each and every single one. How are we getting that money back? What is our reason for doing this? Oh, yeah, that's the question I want to ask. That's the question they will never want to answer. All right. So, we've covered a lot of stuff today. By the way, The United States is in the bill. This is something I saw. I haven't had a chance to research it, but it seems that the Biden administration is becoming more and more isolationist to an extent. We keep pulling our troops out of more and more countries that are becoming less and less stable. We did in the Sudan. We've done that in Haiti. We've done that around the world. We're doing it right now in the country of Niger. The country of Niger, which is in Africa, the Biden administration is pulling our troops out of there because that country is becoming unstable. Just like, where else did we see? The Sudan. What did we do in the Sudan? We left 15,000 people behind. How many Americans is the Biden administration about to leave behind in the country of Niger? Huh? I really want to know. But no one wants to talk about that. Give me a second. I'm checking if we got any phone calls. No. Okay. Just my phone going off. So I think this is important. And I don't know. Maybe in Africa, we're going to see even more Americans abandoned by the Biden-Harris administration before the election. I would not be surprised. They have abandoned so far 70,000 Americans. Again, anyone on the left would like to dispute this. Anyone on the left would like to dispute this, please call in. Please show me your source. I have shown for years my sources. 5,000 Americans in Afghanistan, 10,000 Americans in the Ukraine, 15,000 Americans in the Sudan last year. We have 40,000 Americans in Haiti as we speak right now that we're no longer even trying to get them home. They stopped having planes flying out of Haiti to the United States. The United States government gave up on the entire country of Haiti last Friday. Not this one that just passed. A week ago. Last Friday, a week ago, the American government stopped even having planes fly to try and take Americans out. They got 460 Americans out, most of them not because of the United States government, not because of the State Department, but individuals like mercenary groups. That's why most of the people were able to get out of Haiti. Most Americans were able to get out of Haiti. And the Biden administration has been busy and more interested in providing for Haitian refugees than getting 40,000 Americans out of harm's way. I want you to think about that. They have been trying to set a path, an easy path for the Haitian refugees to enter America rather than trying to help the 40,000 Americans in Haiti to come home. That's the priorities. This is the way the progressive mind works. This is how the Democrats, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, this is how they think. They'd rather take care of a refugee than help an American citizen. They are more willing to make you poor to send money to another country to try and convince them to be California, where Americans don't want to be. Does that make sense to you? Because this is what the progressives are doing. This is factually correct, empirically correct. That is what every international news media will show you. That is the evidence we have been providing for 4 years now, proving our case. And the left says, well, we just don't like you. How's that an answer? I've heard I am old, I'm heard I am ugly, I have been told I am soulless, I have been told to shut up, but I have yet to hear the left give a reason. They'll assassinate my character, or at least they try to, all the time, but they can't justify it. They will tell you that minor attracted persons are natural and fine, and then stay absolutely silent as a 67-year-old goes after and preys upon a 7-year-old with a gun. Something's wrong. Folks, this is wrong. This is wrong. And they will not hold accountable a terrorist, an internationally recognized terrorist organization, Hamas, also the Houthis, also Hezbollah. They will not hold terrorist organizations accountable for killing Americans, and instead they want to build them peers and help them financially. They want to build up their businesses. They want to feed the terrorists in an active war. And these people killed American citizens, but they want to help them. Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make sense, folks. It really doesn't. Let me see here. Let me go back to the comments real quick. There's a couple of comments here from Dal. Dal's been the big voice today. Let's see. Dal says, chipper of wood for predators. Some predators deserve to have a wood chipper as their punishment. I understand what you're saying there, Dal. I can agree with you. And when Dal was talking, another way to think of how they talk about H.R. 8035, you'll sometimes hear it called a foreign war spending omnibus. That's another way that they will word it. To try and, again, they're trying to not let you see what it is. Dow goes on to say, it made me roll my eyes when proponents were trying to justify, when Democrats were trying to justify the spending bill, this money we're spending on these foreign countries, as the money would be spending public funds on domestic and foreign weapon manufacturing for arms and material. Said again, Dow, you said, if it made me roll my eyes when Democrats were trying to justify the spending bill. That should be period, full stop. As the money, the same money in this spending bill, this $95 billion would be spending, could be spent on public funds such as domestic and foreign weapon manufacturing for arms and materials. Okay, I get you. He goes on to say, as if it was really going to as if they would really go on to justify Americans in general that have nothing to do directly or indirectly with the Ukraine. It's not going to directly benefit us, Dow continues to say. Ultimately, every dollar spent with American manufacturing would just return to the coffers of the government and members through taxation and lobbying. Well, actually, no, we just lose money. To be honest, Dow, we just lose money. There is no gain here. There is no benefit to us. But we are told by Columbia University, by Harvard University, by Binghamton University, Cornell, UCLA, we're told this is a good thing. This is okay. We can just print more money. This is modern monetary theory. This is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. This is Andrew Yang. Just print more money. It doesn't matter that poor people get to be more poor. Just print more money and spend it on the progressive ideas, their progressive wish list. Spend it forever because they don't care about the consequence. Because they don't think about the consequence. The consequence, well, that's someone else's problem. They just want what they want right now. It's about their feelings, and they feel like they will be right. And eventually, sooner or later, if they spend enough money, if they wait enough time, they will eventually be right. You just have to wait and see. And I think it's stupid. I think it's the most stupid logic that we have heard. All right. This week, we're going to call it a little bit early. I know normally I take a break for about an hour. I come back. I'm a little more refreshed. We talk a little bit more. But quite honestly, this has been a long week. And I just had the big conversation yesterday with Larry Sharp. I had the conversation with on Friday with the Liberty First Foundation. And the news that's out there right now is pretty much straightforward. We're wasting money on things we shouldn't be wasting money. We're abandoning our allies where we should be supporting our allies. We're showing our enemies how weak we are when we should be showing how strong we can be. We are not considering the consequences of our actions. That is the news that is out there right now. That is what we are seeing the world see about America. And that is not making America safer or better. And even internally in our nation, what are we watching? Pedophiles are attacking our kids. And the media doesn't care. They don't want to talk about it. I'm aggravated, folks. So yeah, we've been talking for 2 hours, 45 minutes today. It's a little bit shorter. I was 4 hours yesterday. Check that out with me and Larry. Hear our reasoning. Hear the thoughts we had about it. I'm just going to take it early. Normally we go for 4, maybe 5 hours. So give me a break this week. We're going to go a little short. I'm going to go, and I'll talk to you all again next week, if not sooner. Okay? Thank you, everyone.